The latest film, Megalopolis, directed by the Godfather's Francis Ford Coppola, tells the story of a utopia. The film is set in a futuristic city, New Rome, and explores humanity's pursuit of an ideal society. Cesar is a renowned architect who won the Nobel Prize for inventing a new material called Megalon. Not only that, he also possesses the ability to stop time.
Time, stop!
After a wild and glamorous party, the mayor's daughter, Julia, is escorted home by the police chief, but their way is blocked by a demolition team. Through the crowd, Julia spots Cesar overseeing the demolition. With a single command, the person in charge presses a button, and explosives planted in the building are triggered. She thought the building would collapse instantly, but suddenly, time stops.
Wait. Go.
Julia is stunned by the scene before her eyes. The building collapses, and the police chief steps forward to accuse Cesar of going too far. The mayor is furious about Cesar's actions, but one of Cesar's subordinates argues back, saying that the building falls under the Design and Management Bureau. If anything was over the line, Cesar would personally apologize. Cesar quickly leaves the scene to attend the launch event for New Rome, his proposed name for the city's future. Cesar, as a progressive visionary, plans to rebuild the entire city using Megalon and turn it into a dreamlike utopia. But Mayor Cicero, a traditionalist, insists on preserving the status quo, continuing to use steel and concrete as the city's main construction materials. Mayor Cicero argues that people's current lives should be the focus. Cesar counters, and there's no time to consider their future?
To convince them to use money they don't have, to buy things they don't need, to imitate people they don't like.
Which makes you the chief slumlord and the mayor of the city of nothing.
You call me that again, and I will smash your face.
Easy, gentlemen.
He then publicly exposes the traps of capitalism in front of Mayor Cicero. Cesar calls him a landlord, referencing all the benefits Cicero has gained from the system. This infuriates Mayor Cicero, who retaliates by bringing up the death of Caesar's wife.
Is your poor sunny hope of plastic girder somewhere? A wall panel? What really happened?
Well, you were the prosecuting DA, so you know I was acquitted. And you're still a slumlord.
I am not!
The gathering ends in Cicero's angry insults. Julia, who witnessed everything, is enraged that someone would speak to her father like that. She and her best friend write a nasty letter and mail it to Cesar. Back at home, Caesar's lover Platinum is already waiting for him. He continues to explain and dream about the necessity of building Megalopolis, but Platinum doesn't care about any of that. She only wants to know when she'll stop being the mistress and finally become his wife. Platinum keeps talking about how much she loves him, but Cesar warns her never to marry because of love. With that, he pushes her aside and gets up to leave. Platinum, angry after being pushed away, turns on the TV and watches her interview with billionaire Crassus. In the program, Crassus had openly flirted with her, but she had turned him down. Now, watching Crassus again, she begins to reconsider. The next day, as Cesar was about to have breakfast, Julia arrived in disguise as a student. After sobering up, she realized how childish it was to send that letter, so she's come to retrieve it. Cesar opens the letter in front of her and reads the insults. Instead of getting angry, he praises her for standing up for her father. Julia also has another motive. She's interested in the future city Cesar described, Megalopolis, and wants to study and be part of it. Cesar mocks her, saying she only completed 1 year of medical school and isn't qualified to study his transcendental thinking. He says he only spares time for those who truly understand science, literature, and art. Offended by his words, Julia turns to leave. Cesar politely says, "Come visit again sometime." Hearing him say time, Julia suddenly remembers something. She turns around and says that last time she saw Cesar defy the laws of physics, he stopped time.
Saw you change the laws of physics.
Hearing this, Cesar finally becomes serious. He takes Julia to another room and asks her to close her eyes and walk through a model. Inside, Julia sees the vision of the future city. People learning and creating together, a city that adapts to the seasons and weather, always adjusting to ensure happiness and holistic well-being for every person. Seeing Caesar's vision for the future, Julia becomes more curious about him. She investigates everything about his wife's death and even starts following him. Cesar walks through the bustling streets and heads to the city's lowest level. Here, poverty and exploitation dominate. People live in fear, constantly fighting over what little they have. Even the statues built to honor the gods seem lifeless here. But in the middle of the chaos stands a beautiful flower shop. Cesar gets out of the car and buys a rose, then heads to a hotel. The entrance is secured with infrared alarms, but whenever Cesar arrives, the staff turns them off and greets him. He enters a room where, aside from a few maids, his wife lies on the bed. He sits by her side and gently brushes her hair. Meanwhile, Julia also arrived at the hotel. She stood outside the door and looked in, only to see Cesar sitting alone on the bed. It turned out the maids and his wife were all just part of Cesar's imagination. Time jumped forward 18 days. Today, Platinum and the billionaire Crassus were getting married. The wedding was attended by celebrities and dignitaries from every corner of society. As Crassus's nephew, Cesar naturally couldn't be absent. By now, Julia had become his assistant. Cesar personally offered his congratulations to the newlyweds at the event. Cesar's cousin Claudio was also at the venue. He couldn't stand Cesar, so he decided to use this wedding to humiliate him. He handed a USB drive to the director and paid several $1,000s to have the video played. At the height of the wedding, a top-tier celebrity named Vesta made her entrance riding a crescent moon. Vesta was only 16 and had made a public vow to remain a virgin until marriage. People believed her promise and saw her as a symbol of purity. Some were even willing to offer $100 million to help her fulfill that vow. Just as Vesta's performance ended, a video of her and Cesar in bed suddenly played on the big screen. The crowd erupted in chaos. People began cursing Vesta as a liar and stormed the stage in fury. Mayor Cicero took the opportunity to condemn Cesar, saying that his actions would bring ruin to the city. Claudio felt proud of what he had done. Julia helped the drunken Cesar leave the scene. Their car was soon stopped by the police, who arrested Cesar on charges of harming a minor. As the mayor's daughter, Julia tried to explain, but it was useless. She could only watch helplessly as Cesar was taken away in a police car.
Revenge tastes best while wearing a dress.
To help Cesar, Julia rushed to the police station overnight to investigate Vesta's records. She discovered that Vesta was an immigrant and was actually 23 years old. If she could prove that Vesta was legally an adult, then Cesar had committed no crime. The next day, Julia brought the proof to her father, hoping he would withdraw the charges against Cesar. But her father tore up the evidence and said Cesar was so wicked he should have been hanged long ago. Angered by her father's attitude, Julia stormed out, ignoring Mayor Cicero no matter how loudly he called her name. Julia went to Crassus. As a powerful tycoon, Crassus was, of course, willing to help his nephew Cesar. Soon, the truth about Vesta forging her age aired during prime time on major television networks. In just one night, the once celebrated Vesta fell from grace. In addition, experts confirmed that the video of Vesta and Cesar was fabricated. With Crassus's help, Cesar was finally released. Cesar and Julia confirmed their love for each other. As they embraced and kissed, Mayor Cicero had a nightmare. In the dream, the moon of his heart was stolen by a giant hand. To build Megalopolis, demolition had to come first. The designated area was almost entirely a slum. People's homes were forcibly demolished, and those full of resentment gathered in protest. Claudio passed by and saw the unrest. He believed these displaced immigrants could become a weapon to stop Megalopolis. He stepped forward, gave the immigrants his remaining money, and led them in opposition to Cesar. But soon after, disaster struck. A Russian nuclear satellite malfunctioned and crashed into the city, triggering an explosion. The explosion left a massive crater. This became the starting point for Caesar's transformation of the city. In the time that followed, he rebuilt the ruins into his imagined megalopolis. People lived happily, greenery was everywhere, and even walking was unnecessary. Every sidewalk was made of Megalon material, turning them into gliding corridors. Even with the beautiful city standing right before their eyes, Mayor Cicero still couldn't accept it. He mocked Cesar, saying that every time he tried to promote something, he would pull out some kind of magic trick. Mayor Cicero and Cesar each confidently stood by their own vision for humanity's future. Both presented examples to prove that they were right. But when Mayor Cicero learned that Julia was pregnant with Caesar's child, he immediately lost his confidence. His brow furrowed, feeling like the jewel of his heart had been stolen. As he listened to the name Julia had chosen for the future child, tears welled up in his eyes. Mayor Cicero didn't answer. He simply stood up and left. Clodio was still trying to campaign for office. His main supporters were the displaced people who had lost their homes. At the rally, he shouted for support while cursing Cesar, but from a distance came the sound of people supporting Caesar. This infuriated Clodio.
Caesar Catalina!
He turned to his trusted aide, Aram, and said, "Isn't anyone going to take care of that damn cousin of mine?" What Clodio said in anger, Aram took seriously. Mayor Cicero visited Caesar late at night. He said that his daughter Julia meant everything to him. In the past, in order to bring Caesar down, Mayor Cicero had hidden the body of Caesar's late wife, who had died in an accident, and he had falsely accused Caesar of murder and concealing the body. With a pleading tone, Mayor Cicero asked Caesar not to tell Julia what he had done. He said he would do anything for Caesar, whether in his personal life or career. At first, Caesar didn't respond, but just as Mayor Cicero was about to leave, Cesar finally spoke.
There are only two things impossible to stare at very long. The sun and your own soul.
With that one sentence, Caesar told him, no one is perfect. It also meant that he had forgiven Mayor Cicero. Even though Platinum had married a billionaire, the only one she truly loved was still Caesar. One day she arranged to meet with Caesar. She said if he agreed to get back together with her, they could take all of Crassus's fortune. Once they were married, all that wealth would belong to Cesar. Hearing Platinum's proposal, Caesar frowned, shook his head, and walked away. After all, Crassus was his uncle. How could he conspire with a woman he didn't love to deceive his own family? Platinum still refused to give up. Crassus managed the largest bank in the country. After returning to Crassus, she used the excuse of learning how to manage the bank to request access to Caesar's accounts. Then she secretly froze all of Caesar's accounts. That night, after appearing on a show, Caesar was just about to head home when he was approached by a 12-year-old boy asking for an autograph. Caesar kindly signed the boy's notebook. But then, out of nowhere, a gunshot rang out and struck Caesar in the head. His right eye was pierced by the bullet, and he was rushed to the hospital for emergency treatment. Under the hands of top surgeons, using the Megalon material he had developed himself, the right side of his face was reconstructed. Once he was well enough to get out of bed, Cesar discovered that his bank account had been frozen. Still recovering, he dragged his weak body to confront his uncle in person. While waiting in the lobby, Platinum walked over and asked him what was going on. Caesar said his account had been frozen. Platinum quickly replied that she could handle anything involving the bank. As long as Caesar asked, she would solve it for him. Caesar realized that Platinum still wanted to get back together, so he unwrapped the bandage from his head. He thought that letting Platinum see his current disfigured face would scare her off. But in Platinum's eyes, the current Caesar looked just like an angel.
Diamonds mean nothing to me.
Caesar met with his uncle and asked why his account had been frozen. Crassus had already guessed that this was Platinum's doing, since she had previously requested access to Caesar's accounts. Without question, Crassus gave the order to unfreeze Caesar's account, but Platinum was already plotting something new. She couldn't wait any longer to get her hands on all of Crassus's fortune. Clodio was Crassus's only heir, so Platinum arranged to meet Clodio and used her charms to convince him to join her in seizing control of Crassus's bank. She told Clodio to find a way to tell Crassus that he wanted to become interim CEO, to genuinely learn how to run a business. She also had him prepare a memorandum for Crassus to sign, officially naming him interim CEO. Crassus, seeing his heir finally showing ambition, felt pleased. But upon reading the memorandum carefully, he noticed it didn't just make Clodio the interim CEO, it named him chairman as well. Crassus instantly realized Clodio's deceit. Enraged, he collapsed from a stroke on the spot. Soon, Saturnalia arrived. And on this day, many things happened. Caesar and Julia held their wedding ceremony. Under the manipulation of Clodio and Platinum, Crassus was stripped of his CEO title. They aimed to control Crassus and, through him, the entire bank. Clodio continued giving public speeches, spreading hatred toward the construction of Megalopolis. He incited the immigrants to riot in the streets, triggering outbreaks of violence. Mayor Cicero quickly deployed the police to suppress the unrest. He gave a speech hoping to calm the people, but the fury was uncontrollable. No one listened to him. With no other option, Mayor Cicero took his family and boarded a train to seek refuge in Megalopolis. At the same time, Crassus lay in bed watching everything unfold on TV. When Clodio and Platinum returned to the room, Crassus pretended to still be paralyzed from the stroke. As they got closer, he suddenly threw off his blanket, pulled out a bow, and shot Platinum dead.
Using bell.
Despite public opposition and suspicion, Cesar did not back down. He appeared before the people and gave a powerful speech debating the future.
You were born with the option to be what you want to be and must. Let it not be said that we reduced ourselves to be brutes and mindless beasts of burden. The human being shall rightly be called a great miracle and a living creature for all to admire. We are such stuff as dreams are made of.
Crassus, watching Caesar's speech on television, told his butler that when he dies, all his fortune should go to Caesar. Let Caesar complete the building of Megalopolis. That way, even in death, he could be remembered as the generous Crassus. Mayor Cicero and his wife arrived outside Megalopolis. At his wife's invitation, Cicero stepped onto one of the parallel elevators. The elevator carried them all the way to the central stage of Megalopolis. There, the entire family of 5 was finally reunited. Mayor Cicero gently placed his granddaughter on the ground. Then everyone held hands, waiting for the sound of the New Year's bell to ring.